What's going on, guys? I'm Cash with Cashed Out Cars, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you guys my experience I've had owning a MK5 Volkswagen Rabbit. So what do you guys need to know before we get started? Well, I've owned this car for about a year and a half and I've put about 8,000 miles on it. The car currently has 128,000 miles, and in this video I'm going to be going through the things I like about the car, what I don't like, what maintenance I've had to do, and the problems that I've had with it to hopefully give you guys an idea of if you should buy a car like it. So with that said, let's get started. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is talk about what I did when I initially bought the car. And a lot of it's just general stuff that you do with any used car that you bought. I did an oil change, I did the cabin air filter, and I did the regular air filter. And then some other stuff that I had to do that was kind of broken on this car was one of the motor mounts was worn out, so I had to switch that so the engine didn't have quite as much slop. And I also had to do the front struts because the ride was quite bouncy. But with those things fixed, it's been great. And then some other things I did to the car during my year and a half of owning it so far is I did another oil change because I'm changing the oil every 3,000 miles and I'm coming up on a third oil change. I changed the fuel filter just in case, who knows when that was changed last. And I did have a small rust problem in the rear wheel arch on the driver's side. So I took care of that, and it's important to note that if you see any rust on these cars, you definitely got to take care of it because I have seen some other cars with rust problems like that. So it's just some stuff to keep in mind. Alright, so now that I've gone through the general maintenance that I've had to do on this car, I'll go through the problems. And there are a couple of problems that I've had with this car, nothing too major, but definitely stuff to keep in mind. So the door mechanisms on these cars do fail a lot. The locking mechanisms fail and the handle mechanisms fail. So I actually had the driver's one fail on me while I owned the car. It stopped locking and you actually couldn't open it from the inside. And then the passenger one just doesn't lock at all, so those are definitely broken and a problem to keep in mind.
Way to go. I just threw that vibration over.
Other things about the car that are problems and that are kind of broken is the interior trim. They put a soft touch coating on it, and that peels off very easily and it starts to look bad once it peels off. The fuel doors, as you can see, I don't have one. They break very easily, and I've seen a bunch of other MK5 cars without fuel doors. Sometimes it's a little bit rough on startup, but it'll always clear out within about 30 seconds. And it doesn't happen often. I'd say it's about 3 to 5 times a year that it just runs really rough when you start it. Other little things, there's some wear on the driver's seat, and it does have a slight oil leak, but as you could tell, nothing too major with the car. Alright, so another thing that I want to touch on just real quick is the fuel economy. So this car doesn't get bad fuel economy, but it's also not great for a small to mid-sized car like it is. Over the last 3 months I've averaged 22.1 miles per gallon, and that's not bad, but like I said, it's also not great. And it's also important to keep in mind that I do mostly city driving and just around town. And it's also important to keep in mind that this is the 2.5 liter engine and that the GTI and the GLI are actually rated better than this. Alright, so now with all the maintenance stuff and the general info and problems about the car out of the way, I'm going to go through what I like and what I dislike. So what do I like about this car? I definitely like that it's a really modern car, and it definitely looks a lot more modern than like a MK4 Volkswagen and stuff along those lines. And even though the design's about 10 years old, it definitely still looks very nice, and I love the way it looks. So that's kind of subjective, but I definitely like it. And the interior on this car is also very modern looking and clean. And I definitely enjoy the interior, and it's nice and comfortable. And other stuff, it's pretty reliable. Like, those problems I had are definitely minor issues, and it hasn't broken down on me or left me stranded anywhere because of that. And I also think it's a pretty fun car to drive. I have the 5-speed transmission in it, and it's definitely fun. I did an event at the Consumer Reports test track, which was a Survive the Drive day, but it had some performance driving aspects of it. And I did like a slalom and a skid pad event, and it was definitely pretty fun to drive on that. So an additional thing that I like about this car is the storage space, especially with the hatchback on the Rabbit. You definitely get a lot of storage space. And I've thrown 2 snowboards in here with 2 people without a problem, and I've also put a whole drum set in here and guitars without a problem. So storage space is definitely a good thing with these cars. Alright, so now I'll go through some dislikes and things that I don't really absolutely love about this car. And first off is fuel economy. It's not super great, but obviously this car isn't a Prius, so you wouldn't expect something like that. Some other things that I don't really like, I'm not a huge fan of this plastic engine cover covering everything up and making it kind of hard to get to stuff if you want to work on it. but that's also not a big deal. It does come off pretty easily. And the final thing is some parts on this car are a little bit tricky to work on. Like to get to the door mechanism, you actually have to take the whole exterior skin off, which is time consuming. And another thing is the strut design was a little bit funky to get to, but all in all, it's not really that bad. It's just more difficult to work on than, say, my Miata. So those are some things I dislike about the car. Alright, so with all that said, would I recommend a Mark V Volkswagen like this one? And with my experience, I definitely would recommend a car like this because it's been super fun and pretty reliable, and I just think it's a great car, so yes, I would recommend it. And that's going to conclude this little review. I hope you found it helpful in determining if a Mark V Volkswagen is right for you. If you have any further questions or comments, feel free to leave them below and I'll get back to you. And also check out my channel because every project that I do on this car I put on there and I do a detailed how-to. So if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe for more. As always, thank you for watching.